So, hello there, and welcome back to another Nights to Movies podcast. I'm Spy Knight, and in these podcasts, I like talking all things music and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm reviewing Blink Twice. So, let's get into it, shall we? Blink Twice is the new film from Zoe Kravitz, who is Lenny Kravitz's daughter, and who is best known for starring in such movies as The Batman, in which she played Catwoman. She also starred in Mad Max Fury Road, in which she played one of the brides. And she starred in the HBO series Big Little Lies. However, she does not star in this film. Notice I said about 10 seconds ago when I started reviewing this movie, I said this is a new film from Zoe Kravitz, not starring Zoe Kravitz, because this is Zoe Kravitz's directorial debut as a filmmaker, as a director even. This is her first full-length feature film, and that had me interested because I'm always interested when an actor transitions to becoming a director, gives it a go at directing, gives it a go at being in the director's chair. You know, we saw Dev Patel do that with Monkey Man early this year, and I thought that film was phenomenal, and I was hoping to have a similar kind of experience watching this film as I did watching Monkey Man. Like, I knew it wasn't going to be the same as my experience watching Monkey Man. That film was, God, that was so good to watch in the cinema, but at the same time, I was hoping that Zoe Kravitz could do something. I was hoping Zoe Kravitz would be good as director, because the trailers for this film looked good, and that was another thing which interested me. The trailers for the film hooked me, and the trailers for the film made it look like Zoe Kravitz knew what she was doing as a director. I mean, trailers can be misleading, so you never really know until you actually sat there watching the film in the cinema, or sat there watching the film on your couch. I don't know why I said couch there, so I said sofa, because I'm not American, when you sat there watching the film on your sofa. But at the same time, when a trailer for a film, what I'm trying to say here, when a film trailer is making the film look like it's well directed, that gets me interested, especially when it's from a first-time director who is best known for being an actor, if you follow me. So those were two big things which interested me from this film. The fact that it was Zoe Kravitz's directorial debut, and also the trailers. And the third big thing which interested me about this movie was the unique cast that had been assembled for this film, because you have the likes of Naomi Ackie in the lead role, and Naomi Ackie is probably best known for starring as, you know, Whitney Houston, as playing Whitney Houston in the Whitney Houston biopic, what's Love Got to Do With It, which came out a couple of years ago now. She was also in Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, and she didn't have a huge role in that film, and she was mostly sidelined in that movie as well, but she was one of the more redeeming features from that film, in my opinion. So you have her in the lead role, alongside Channing Tatum, who has a very big role in this film. Haley Joel Osment, who I haven't seen in a film in what feels like a very long time, in a new film in what feels like a very long time, because he was a kid alongside Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense, and he was also the kid alongside Jude Law in Steven Spielberg's AI, Artificial Intelligence. But I didn't know he was still acting. I always assumed he was one of those child actors that just stopped acting. I think the last thing I saw him in was The Boys Series 1, which he did not have a big role in. So it was a surprise to see him in this film. And alongside him, you have Christian Slater, who I haven't seen him much recently, Adria Arjona, who starred opposite Glenn Powell in Richard Linklater's Hitman, which came out earlier this year, and she was also awesome in Andor Series 1, and I kind of wait to see her in Andor Season 2 next year. So you got her in the cast, and you have Gina Davis in this cast as well, who I just recently rewatched in Beetlejuice. And the first Beetlejuice, it feels weird to say the first Beetlejuice now, because the sequel is quite literally coming this week, but it is the case because the sequel is coming. So yeah, I just rewatched Gina Davis in the first Beetlejuice, and I did not realise she was in this film until I was sat in the cinema watching the movie, and I was like, oh my god, it's Gina Davis. what an odd cast. That was one of my things about this movie. Like, that was one of the things that interested me. That was one of the things that I was thinking about, you know, in regards to the film whilst I was watching it in the cinema yesterday. I was thinking, what an odd cast. But what a brilliant cast as well, because I like films when you have a stacked cast like this, full of stars, full of, you know, great actors, that you wouldn't really expect to see together in a movie. So that was another thing which interested me. That was the third thing which interested me. And the fourth thing which interested me about this film was the idea behind it. Not necessarily the story, but just the idea of a group of characters being in one location and everything seems too good to be true. Because it is. Because something bad is happening on this location. Strange things start happening to hint that something bad's happening, and then as the film unravels, so does the mystery surrounding what's actually going on in this location. I love thrillers that have that sort of premise, and that is what this film was looking like it was going to be. So that is why I went to go and see this film at the cinema yesterday. And the Google plot synopsis of this film goes as follows. When tech billionaire Slater King, played by Channing Tatum in this movie, meets cocktail waitress Frida, played by Naomi Ackie in this film, at his fundraising gala, he invites her to join him and his friends for a dream vacation on his private island. Wild nights soon blend into sun-soaked days, but when strange things start to happen, Frida must uncover the truth if she hopes to make it out alive. And that's pretty much all I need to know about this film. Blink twice before you see it. And honestly, I thought this film was great. The thing I admired about it the most was how it kept me hooked in, how it sustained my engagement throughout its runtime. Like, I'm not too sure how long the film is. It's 1 hour and 42 minutes. It felt like 90 minutes. It didn't feel as long as it actually was. Not that there's a big difference in, 90 minutes and 1 hour and 40 minutes. But at the same time, it felt shorter than it actually was, and it sustained my interest. And I came out the cinema thinking, wow, Zoe Kravitz has a bright future ahead of her as a director. I can't wait to see what she does next, because she directs this film with a style that so many filmmakers who are making big budget movies nowadays just don't. And I was watching this film thinking, God, I love how visually striking this film is. I love how it's got this style to it. It almost was intoxicating to watch. You feel like the characters in this film that you follow, you feel like Naomi Aki's character in the film when she goes to this island and she is almost being drugged by this island. Slight hints what's actually going on slight hints through the reveal in this film, which happens in the second half. You feel yourself like you're being drugged by the island once you get there. And I love the way I love the way it was directed. I think Zoe Kravitz, like I said before, has a very bright future ahead of her as a director, because she does a really great job with this movie. And you can tell that this is a story she wants to tell. And you can also tell that perhaps she's experienced things similar to what happened in this movie. You can tell she has this almost intimate knowledge of these types of situations, and if you've seen the film, you know what I'm going on about there. I do have a couple of nitpicks here and there. I do kind of wish we got to learn a little bit more about our main characters at the start of the movie, because we're just kind of thrown into their situation. Like, we don't know much about Naomi Aki's character and her best friend in the film, other than the fact that they're waitresses and trying to make ends meet. And I wish we got to know a bit more about them. And I get that was intentional, particularly when you get towards a later half of the film, particularly when you get towards the big finale of the movie. But I felt there could have been a bit more done with the characters and their characterizations. Like, we don't know much about Adria Arjone's character. Apologies for mispronouncing the actress' name there. We don't know much about her character, but she becomes really important as the film goes on. And then if I knew a bit more about the character, I think I would have felt more of an attachment to her. And same with other characters here and there. Like, we don't know quite as much about the characters I would have liked to in order for me to feel affection for them or to not feel affection for them. I mean, there were certain characters I did hate and, you know, really, truly hate coming out of this movie, but I feel I would have hated them even more if I knew a little bit more about them. But, and, you know, there are other things here and there that I had problems with. Like, I don't think the finale quite came together in the way the film thinks it is. Like, I think the filmmakers behind this movie and Zoe Kravitz perhaps thought that the finale of the film was actually better than it turned out to be. But at the same time, yeah, I've got problems with this movie. I do. I've got my nitpicks here and there. But I had a great time watching it. I mean, it's a disturbing film, but it's also one of those films which is fun to watch. Zoe Kravitz adds comedy into this film in ways that shouldn't work but do. And there are moments in the film which are quite unnerving to sit through, but at the same time funny. Like, there's one scene in particular where Adria Jones' character, and this is hinted at in the trailer, this is not, you know, this is not a spoiler, this is a completely spoiler-free review. There's one moment in the trailers where she says, I feel like I'm having fun here, but also not. And the way that scene is played out in the movie, it's actually quite funny, but then it is shocking. You know, Zoe Kravitz, I think, Chrissy's credit as the co-writer on this movie as well, did a great job sort of walking this tightrope of comedy, being comedic when it needs to be, but also being shocking when it needs to be, because the film is shocking when those big reveals happened. And there was one sequence in particular, I was literally grabbing the, what do you call these, armrests, I can't think of the bloody word there, but I was actually grabbing the armrests of my seat in the cinema thinking, oh my god, I did not expect the film to go this explicit, because it is an explicit film. And there are certain things from this movie that I won't be forgetting anytime soon, but it is still fun to watch. It feels like Zoe Kravitz knows what audience want when they go to watch something at the cinema. They know they want to go and have a fun time. Sometimes you hear, you know, like that a director, an upcoming director, a first-time director has a new film, and then you go to the cinema and everyone's been raving about this movie, and you go to cinema to watch it, and the movie itself isn't that fun to watch. It may be a good movie, but it isn't as fun to watch, and you don't feel like you need to watch it in the cinema. But I'm not saying you need to watch it in the cinema, but at the same time, it feels like Zoe Kravitz, although she wants to tell this shocking story, also wants to have a good time. Also wants to give audiences a fun time at the cinema, or make it as fun as possible. You know, there are needle drops in this movie which, as soon as they came on, I was like, yeah, this needle drop, oh god, it's adding a layer of enjoyment to the film that perhaps if you didn't use that needle drop, the film wouldn't have. You know, the film's got needle drops of loads of famous songs. James Brown and loads of other artists. Beyonce's in there at one point, and for some reason I've just blanked on the artists that are used in the soundtrack for this movie. But yeah, the soundtrack itself is used in a way that adds a layer of enjoyment to the film that I think the film needed, you know. I think the film needed to have that, because also it gives the film that momentum. This film has a certain momentum when it's building up to certain things in this movie, to big reveals, and it adds a lot of suspense to the film, and it's just a really, really great movie. I didn't expect it to be as good as, I didn't expect it to be as great even as it turned out to be. Yeah, I had a very, very memorable time watching this in the cinema. Not because I had a bad cinematic experience, because the film was memorable. And that's what you want coming out of a cinema. You want to come out of a cinema with this long-lasting impression that the film has given you, and that's exactly what happened here. Yeah, I thought it was directed with style, with confidence, which you don't always get from first-time directors, and it feels like Zoe Kravitz knew what the audiences wanted, and also it feels like she wanted to tell this story because, yeah, I think it, she probably has maybe witnessed things that happen in the film itself, and you feel that when you watch it. It was surprisingly great, and so I'm going to say that Blink Twice. I'm going to say that it's you know what? I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. I had a really great time watching this in the cinema, and if you don't get a chance to watch it in the cinema, then do check it out on streaming when it comes out on streaming, because it is one of those movies which will shock you, but will entertain you at the same time. It's not just a movie which is, oh, look how disturbing and shocking what's happening in the story is. It is one of those films which does that, but it doesn't just do that. You know what I mean? There's an entertainment value there, which I think only somebody like Zoe Kravitz could put in there. Because if you see in interviews, she seems like quite a fun person. So no surprise that this film does have some fun sequences, which now look back at them actually don't seem as fun as it did when I was watching for the first time. Like there's one dance sequence in particular which seemed really fun to watch on the first time around. And I want to see it one time. So yeah, it seemed really fun to watch when I saw it yesterday, but I'm not sure how fun it would be to watch when I rewatch it. So that's another thing then. It's got a rewatch value. I'm looking forward to rewatching it with people who haven't seen it yet. So that's always a good thing as well. Yeah, I think Zoe Kravitz did a great job with this movie. I can't wait to see what she does next. It's visually striking. It's got some great performances. The casting's brilliant, by the way. I said that the cast is very unique, and I do think it is a very unique cast, but it works. It just works so well, particularly Channing Tatum. I'm not a big Channing Tatum fan, but I liked him a lot in this movie. So yeah, the casting is all great, so is performances, and the film itself, it's an unforgettable ride. Let's just say that. It's disturbing when it wants to be, and also fun when it wants to be as well, which makes it all that memorable. The finale didn't quite come together, but, in the grand scheme of things, I came out of the cinema thinking that was worth a watch. And so, all in all, as what he said, I was going to say once more in this podcast today, Blink Twice is an 8.5 out of 10 from me. Anyway guys, that's it for today's podcast. If you have seen Blink Twice, please let me know your thoughts on it in the comments section below. And as always, thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like and subscribe on this podcast. I look forward to many more podcasts coming very, very soon on this channel. I've got a very itchy arm right now. I don't know if you've been watching this podcast and noticed that. Yeah, I've got a very itchy arm. Don't know why that is all of a sudden. But anyway, thank you as always for watching or listening to this podcast. And I suppose this is it. So I will see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.